Shintoism. And if we understand from the perspective of our lessons, if we understand one simple little fact, what is devil? A grafted man which has been made weak or wicked, or any grafted live germ from original is devil. If we know that concept, then when I sit down with a Buddhist, I can talk to the Buddhist about Mara. Mara is the devil from the perspective of Buddhism. And then I can speak to him about, yeah, I understand through the history that, one of the things that Mara does is he influences people, he causes them to become weak and then influences their wickedness. What did I just do? I'm speaking the language of Buddhism, but I'm speaking from the supreme wisdom. If I understand devil from Zoroastrianism, then I can speak to the one who practiced Zoroastrianism, but I'm speaking because I have not just memorized lesson number, I think it's 33 or 31 or 33, but I've internalized it. And I'm saying I, really speaking generally for all of us, I'm speaking from the lessons, but I'm speaking, the Most High Elijah Muhammad said, when you give a baby a bottle, you put some Islam in it, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm speaking Buddhism, but I'm putting the supreme wisdom in there. If I'm speaking to someone in the Church of Scientology, I wouldn't say the devil makes someone weak and wicked. I say the reactive mind makes someone attenuated and aberrated.
Excellent.
I just have to change the language, but the intention and the words are the meanings are the same, but the words are different. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we kind of have to grow up, not us, but just generally speaking, we have to grow up and realize that if we really take the time to study these faith traditions, we're all saying the same thing.
That's right. I agree.
Does everyone follow that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I want to take us a step further. If the stories of the scriptures are dramas, and these dramas represent characters with names, and they're talking about internal processes, could we say the same thing about mathematics? Could an equation, instead of characters and names, we have symbols, operations, numbers, and variables? Could these represent, in a symbolic form, internal dramas that are taking place within us?
Wow,
in other words, if I'm looking at an equation, again, I look at the equation, left brain. That means I understand how to handle the equation. But if I look at it through the lens of the feminine aspect of my thinking, I could say, how does that equation represent something that's going on within me? So now when I look at that equation is not something that's foreign and external. That equation represents something that has its root in my own consciousness. Does that make sense? Okay. Is this, or could this be another aspect of what's meant by studying our mathematical theology? The mathematics, the physics, the science, all of these things, instead of like in the Bible, instead of having the names like Joseph and Esther and Jacob, if we look at it mathematically, we have algebra and limits and formulae. And these are names that represent dramas taking place within us. I'll give you a quick example. If you have an equation and you look at that equation and you don't understand the equation, is there a devil present?
Definitely, because you don't have no understanding.
There's a misunderstood in there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's a misunderstood in that equation, if there's a misunderstood in a concept, and we decide not to figure it out, and we decide to say, to hell with it, I'm not going to study it, have we not let the devil settle on the best part of the planet Earth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that could represent an internal drama in the form of a mathematical statement. Is everyone following this?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. And who else? Who else is with us? I can't see everyone.
I understand. I'm tracking.
Okay, okay. Sister Heidi, you tracking with us? Sister Heidi still with us?
Sister Heidi's probably at work
Okay,
listening.
okay. Oh, that's right. She said, okay.
No, I'm tracking. I'm driving. I'm actually
Okay,
on my
okay,
way
okay.
to
No,
get
no, no, no.
across.
You can't talk. You drive. Okay.
I understand.
Okay. I mean, this is really, really important. This is the hopes of us looking at reality, the universe, our lessons, and even the minister's words in a new unit of time from another level of thinking. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, what is a drama? What is a drama? The definition of a drama is it's a composition in verse or prose intended to portray life or character or to tell a story, usually involving conflicts and emotions through action and dialogue, and typically designed for theatrical performances. So we all have drama. Based on this, we all have dramas inside, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you're aberrated, if you have engrams, if you and I have locks, if we have secondaries, if we have buttons that someone can push, and we have the ability to cuss people out, then we have an internal drama, correct?
That's right.
Some of us have cinemas with 12 movies going on at one time, right? Some of us have multiple cinemas.
With no intermission, with no intermission.
With no intermission and some of us have IMAX.
The movies move you.
Huh?
I said, in those movies move you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While you eating popcorn.
Yeah, we're eating popcorn, snacks. Okay. So is there a composition within, in the form of events on our time track, that involve characters, which we call valences, that involve internal conflicts, emotions, and dialogues, which we can call circuits?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wow.
So we have this internal drama going on, correct?
That's right.
So as we go back, based on the words of the minister, if we reread scripture, and if we were to go through just certain parts of scripture and look at the names in a certain area and look up those names, because this is relevant with regards to the Bhagavad Gita, I know specifically, because I've started doing that. When you look at the names are in, I think, either Sanskrit or whatever the language is of the Bhagavad Gita, which is either Sanskrit or there's another language I can't remember off the top of my head. But when you actually clear those words represent emotional states. So when you go back into the Bhagavad Gita and you look at the dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, which is really Arjuna having a dialogue with the God within himself. Okay. So in a kind of like Krishna is like his self-accusing spirit, I'll say it like that. And he's at war with his family.
Yes.
Okay. But when you look at that internally, if we're aberrated, aren't we at war with our valences?
Yes, we are.
We're at war with our family that are still contained within ourselves, right? So when you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you really study the Bhagavad Gita and you put yourself in the book, it'll tell you a whole lot about yourself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you read Dante's Inferno, which is called the Dante's Divine Comedy, which is actually 3 parts: Dante's Inferno, the Purgatory, and then the Paradiso. If you read that book, you will see the tech. You will see the Holy Quran. You will see the Bhagavad Gita. You will see the Dhammapada. Okay. Dante's Inferno it starts off with a man named Dante who's trying to travel up a mountain to get to God. And every time he's trying to get up the mountain to get to God, these three beasts block his path and drive him back down. Then he meets a man named Virgil. And Virgil says, before you can ascend the mountain to get to God, you have to first descend into hell and understand the nature of sin. Well, isn't that Dianetics processing?
Yes, sir.
We're trying to get to God, but our own aberrated mind, our reactive mind is keeping us from ascending. So through Dianetic processing, Virgil becomes the auditor. Virgil escorts Dante through hell. What is the auditor doing? The auditor is escorting us through our own personal hell. Then we understand the nature of our own hell, and then we can ascend up the mountain to get through what's called purgatory. Then we start to purge ourselves of what we're going through.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because as we're purging, isn't that the same as releasing charge? And then once you ascend up purgatory and you're releasing charge, in the book, when you first arrived at purgatory, you have 7 marks on your forehead. And you have to stay at each level of purgatory based on there's 7 deadly sins. So in purgatory, there's 7 levels. You have 7 marks on the forehead. And as you purge each level, when you finish one level, you get to a gate. There's an angel there who removes one of the marks and allows you to ascend up to the next level. So now you decrease to 6 marks. You complete that level. You get to the 5th level. You complete that. You get to 4th. Now you complete that. You get to the 3rd. Each time there's an angel there that removes a mark from your forehead. And then when all the marks are removed from your forehead, you're allowed into paradise. Well, isn't that the removal of engrams?
Wow.
As we ascend up the purgatory of our time track, as we come back to present time, the auditor is working to remove the marks from our forehead so we can now reach into paradise, which we could call clear. It's just another way of looking at things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Brother Lukeman, that same concept is with Prophet Muhammad when he went to the 7 heavens.
The Mirage.
Yes, Surah 17. And each heaven, he met with someone. He met with a prophet. So do you have the similarity between what you're sharing, even right in Islam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's like everyone is saying the same thing. If all the prophets, because we're told that at a certain time, information that comes from the al-Kitab is given to certain people at certain times. It's revealed in portions, right?
That's right.
Well, if all the wisdom is coming from the same book, it has to have the same truth.
That's right.
It's just given at different time periods based on the language and the cultural symbolism of the group to whom it's given. The symbols are different, the language is different, but if you get past the language and the symbolism, everyone is really saying the same thing.
That's right.
Okay. So we all have internal drama. That's a stable datum, right?
Yes, sir. Brother Bookman?
Yes, ma'am.
With us, I'm so grateful to Master Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the minister. With us being a part of the Nation of Islam and told to study everything, that allows us to be in oneness with those who study other religions or who has a different faith. It all leads to the same road, and we understand that. So when it comes to us dialoguing with those of a different walk of life, they get upset when we present something. However, on the flip side, I know for myself, I don't get upset. And my saying is, from the Holy Quran, to you be your way, to me be mine. I'm always open to, learn something from somebody else, to see what it is that they believe or what they know.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right.
So, praise be to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. What is an allegory? It's an expression by means of symbolic fictional figures and actions of truths or generalizations about human existence. Well, isn't that what the minister just described?
Yes, sir.
That's what the minister was explaining, right? He might have
Right,
used different words, but really he was describing an allegory, correct?
That's it. Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay. So the scriptures represent actions, truths, and generalizations through the use of real or fictional characters that teach us about human existence.
Mm.
So now, when we go back and read the Bible, we read the Holy Quran, we can read it from a whole different perspective now. We can say, okay, here's the person's name. Here's what does that name actually mean? And then when you clear that word, you'll see that that name might represent an emotional state. So now it represents an emotional state. Okay, so now what happens is this section of what I'm reading becomes like an equation. I've just figured out one variable. So now that means if I can figure out these other variables, now these ayats or these parts of the equation in the Holy Quran become a formula and allows me to figure out something. So now if I can figure this out in the Holy Quran, I might be able to figure something out in myself.
That's right.
The Holy Quran becomes a book of processing. Okay. Now, what is a demo kit? Demo kit is short for demonstration kit. And it comes from the Latin word demonstrare, which means to point, that's supposed to be to point out, to show, or to prove. There's always one little word that slips in there. It always happens. So the quote is, a demo kit, as it is called, is composed of various small objects, such as corks, caps, paper clips, pen tops, rubber bands, etc. You can use a demo kit to represent the things you are studying and to help understand concepts. So in other words, if you're studying a concept and for some reason it's just not clicking, those of us that have been on course remember that little bowl of things, objects, and we use that to give mass to what we're studying, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it's another means of demonstrating something. Another means of demonstrating something is by sketching. Okay, you just kind of sketch out a picture, which means you're sketching it out in 2 dimensions, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
with me, okay. If you can, he says, this is SRD page 29. If you can take a pencil and paper and sketch out or draw graphs of what you are working with, you can get a grip on it. So you're taking a concept, but you're illustrating the concept in the form of a picture. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't that go back to what we said in the very beginning? Left brain and right brain. Right brain deals with pictures. The right brain looks at things holistically. I'll give you an example. If you don't understand right brain, then you'll understand it, especially from the perspective of the sisters. You'll understand this. When you're dealing with children or when you're dealing with an individual and they're talking to you, you're not just looking at what they're saying, you're looking at the whole picture, right? You're looking at body language, you're looking at tone, you're looking at what they're saying, how they're saying it. And that's how you know when children are lying, right?
Yes, sir.
You're looking at the situation holistically. The children are saying one thing and you're looking at them, but when you're looking at them, you're looking at everything they're saying and everything they're doing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is a right brain operation. Okay. For sisters that have ever caught individuals in a lie, they got caught because the sister was looking at everything.
That's right.
Okay. Does that make sense, family?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's right brain. Okay. When you look at when you look at, and the demo kit is something that's taught real heavy in what's called the student hat. What L. Ron Hubbard is doing is he's getting us back into the study the way that we used to study. So really, in the words of the minister, this tech does belong to us. And L. Ron Hubbard says that the source of his wisdom comes from the Asiatics, correct?
That's right.
That's a statement that was made in The Creation of Human Ability. He says that the source or the root of this comes from the Asiatics. Okay. At one time, this is how we learned. Look at Yaqub, said he had mastered all the schools of his time by the age of 18, correct? He couldn't have done that if he was going along the lines of Western educational system. Because the Western educational system takes how many years to get one degree? It takes 4 years, right? So to get 360 degrees, I think the math is right, to get 360 degrees or to gain the knowledge of all things or to complete all the schools based on that math, it would take 1,440 years. I think that's how the math works out.
1440?
Right. So I think, let's do the math real quick. I'm just doing that off from memory. But so 360 times 4. Yeah, 1,440 years to get 360 degrees of wisdom. It takes 4 years to get 1 degree. In other words, our ancient civilizations, we had a different way of studying that we could learn more information in less time, correct? Okay. But remember, this is not a Western educational system. Minister Farrakhan has taught us that the word education is derived from the word educo, which means to bring something out of. This is a Western indoctrinational system. And really, to really understand, you have to be indoctrinated and educated. Wisdom has to be put in and understanding has to be extracted. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And this system is not educational because you only you parrot what they tell you. You do your multiple choice questions. You answer it the way they put it out. They're not asking you to expound on it or to give your understanding or to even take the knowledge further, maybe take it to another level. Just repeat it exactly as I gave it. Otherwise, you don't pass, you don't get the piece of paper, and now you graduate from college or high school, you have a piece of paper, and you're still as dumb as a box of rocks. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to say we're all dumb. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is this educational system is not designed to educate us. It's designed to make us leave, go to work, make someone else rich, and we're working from paycheck to paycheck, and we're all frustrated because we're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. Y'all understand what I'm saying, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Absolutely.
I know you wealthy people on the line don't get it, but okay.
I get it, Brother Lukman. I'm at work and I'm like, Dad, I need my Supreme Wisdom book.
Right.
I'm here at work. Can't be home studying. So I understand.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So now when you look at the demo kit, there's some key words here. When you look at sketching, you look at the word sketch and you look at graphs. When you deal with graphs, to me, that's mathematics, okay? You're drawing a graph, you have what's called your coordinate system, your X, Y coordinates, that's a graph. So when you look at, you're using small objects represent 3-dimensional figures, correct? When you're sketching, that's considered 2-dimensional. And then when you're using graphs, you're using mathematics, okay? But now, is the demo kit in the Holy Quran? Surah number 2, ayat number 26 says, surely Allah disdains not to set forth any parable, a gnat, or anything above that. But now when you look at the word parable, the word parable is mathala. M-A-T-H-A-L-A. Okay, the word parable in Arabic is mathala. Look at the first four letters of the word mathala. What do you see?
Maha.
Nope. Look at it again. M-A-T-H-A-L.
Oh, Matt.
Math. Math. Okay. The word in Arabic means to represent something in a picture or to represent it graphically. But isn't that the same thing as a demo kit?
Yes.
Okay. It means to find visual expression, but it also means metaphor, an allegory, an adage, a parable, pattern, proverb, simile, or similitude. Okay. So a metaphor is a demo kit in the form of symbols. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the scripture, as the minister was saying, the scripture that represents the dramas, the characters and their names. The scriptures are like demo kits.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the concept of the demo kit that we find in Scientology is the equivalent of the parable that's in the Holy Quran. So again, two different words, two different phrases, demo kit and parable. We would think that these two things are different, but when we understand the meaning of a demo kit and understand the meaning of the word parable, then we understand that really these two things are really saying the same thing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so therefore also when we look at mathematical equations, when we look at formulae, we look at functions, and we look at calculus and trig and all these things, what we're looking at parables in the form of symbolism. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Brother Salam.
When Yaku playing with two pieces of steel, what do you see out of that in relationship to a demo kit?
Oh, brother, that's what we were talking about at the very beginning. When you look at that lesson, Yaku, what we were saying at the very, very beginning was first, he was born with a determined idea, correct?
That's right.
That means something was so in other words, here's how we addressed it at the very, very beginning of today. When we're born, our childbirth produces our first engram. And that's why 9 times out of, well, I won't say 9 times out of 10, but often our reactive mind is connected to our mothers on some levels because that's the root of our first engram. Does that make sense?
Are you saying that coming to birth produce an engram?
Yes, because if you go through a painful situation, and then if there's things that are being said at the time that you're going through the painful situation, obviously there's people that have to make statements. Then that's producing the first engram.
Okay,
so
but suppose no one is there and the mother is just screaming out.
Well, that's something that's being said. That becomes part of it. That's a circuit.
Wow.
Okay.
So we all born. Okay.
We're all born into sin and shaped into iniquity. We come here with an engram.
Wow.
And then everything builds on that. But what I'm saying is, I'm using this as a thought. If there's an engram at the very beginning, some of us have engrams that have not been keyed in yet, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they haven't been keyed in. What we were looking at on the flip side is, could that also represent something on a positive side, meaning there's something positive that's implanted in us before we were born? Because if he was born with a determined idea, that means the determined idea was given to him before he was born.
That's right.
If he's born with, then it had to come before, right? And by him playing with two pieces of steel, That is a demo kit. So he was playing with two pieces of steel. We could say he learned something from playing with the two pieces of steel that keyed in his purpose.
Wow.
So now
He saw something.
he saw something in the steel, but if he was born with a determined idea, is it possible that by playing with the two pieces of steel, it turned on what was already implanted in him beforehand? Remember, he was written up 8,400 years before he was born, right?
That's right.
Okay. Brother Jabril says in Self First that all of us were written about in the year one.
Okay.
So is it possible that we all have a determined idea, but now if the enemy can make us afraid of mathematics, physics, and science, then we will never play with two pieces of steel and we will never turn on what our predetermined purpose is, because we're running from the keys that we could turn to turn ourselves on and find out who it is that we are. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that lesson can teach us possibly that the more we get into mathematics, physics, and science, the more we put our head in our supreme wisdom lessons. What if the supreme wisdom lessons in the problem book represent the keys that turn on our individual determined idea?
Right.
I see that. I see that.
So does that answer your question, Brother Salon?
Without a doubt, definitely.
Okay. Praise be to Allah. So now, demo kit from our perspective. This is from Closing the Gap, page 312. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaking, this is a quote by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad: Almighty Allah has taught me that if we study the universe and the nature of the earth, its plants, animals, and insect life, if we study this part of Allah's creation and the natural laws working among them, we will have the key to the understanding of the way of life intended by God for you and me. This is the language of a scientist, right? So now, this is a stable datum, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, why would it be so bad to use the tech as a tool to unlock this safe right here that's full of riches? If we can use the tech to go deeper into the messenger's words, why would we not want to do that? What if L. Ron Hubbard has given us formulae and axioms that will actually help us to break down what the messenger has already given us, what the minister has already given us? Okay, for example, look at those words in green. You have the universe, you have earth, plants, animals, insect life, natural laws, way of life. Okay. This, again, in the words of Brother Batin, may Allah be pleased with him, is a fundamental. Anything that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, anything that the minister says is considered a fundamental. Meaning, if we just stay and quote what they say, then we miss. Remember, an iceberg. What percentage of the iceberg is under the water? The tip of the iceberg is only 10% of the iceberg. But no matter how big the iceberg is that you see, that's only 10%. 90% of the iceberg is hidden. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The words of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, if it's a wake-up message, could we say it's just the tip of the iceberg?
Yes, because he made another statement to reference that when he said, what I teach is the base of a universal knowledge. It's not that yet, but it soon will be that.
Okay. That tells me that anything that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said is the tip of the iceberg, but there's layers and layers and layers of wisdom that we haven't even scratched yet. Why is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan so successful? Because he has gone under the water and studied the parts that are hidden under the surface. Does that make sense, family? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All of these concepts mentioned are demo kits. I'm going to show you how we can take the concept of demo kit and apply it. Now, if we can apply this to just one paragraph of what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, What could we do with if we go back and read Message to a Black Man again? Our Savior Has Arrived, Fall of America, How to Eat to Live, Book 1, Book 2, Self-Improvement Study Program. If we use the tech as a tool and go back, the safe, as we were saying the last time,
Clear,
safe full
yes.
of, the safe full of riches could be what we already have, but we're just on the surface. We can use the tech to go deeper into what we already have. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the demo kit uses marbles, paper clips, buttons, etc., right? But if you go into our wisdom, don't we use planets, atoms, equations, gravity, quarks, and lions, and the speed of light?
Yes, sir.
So that's what we use in our demo kits. We use planets. We use the diameter of Mars. We use the far planet Platoon or Pluto. We use the lion coming out of the cage. We use the weight of the atmosphere. We use cracking an atom into 10 million parts. That's our demo kit, correct? Sister Sharon, you had something?
No, sir.
Okay. Does everyone follow
Can you
that?
hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. Does that make sense, family?
A lot of sense.
Okay. So we could say that the universe is the demo kit of Allah, correct?
That's right.
So if we go and we study quasars and we study constellations and we study chemistry, we study organic chemistry, we study trig, we're studying physics, we're studying thermodynamics. Aren't those the objects that Allah has given us in order to understand, come into an understanding of his way of thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't he give us the parable of the cow from betwixt the feces and the blood, a drink agreeable to the drinker? Isn't that a demo kit?
Yes.
Doesn't he say that he talks about ships on the sea, and when we withhold the winds, they become motionless bodies? Doesn't he say that? And in this is wisdom for those who comprehend and for those who understand. Is he not giving us demo kits in the Holy Quran? And if we actually go and study that what he gives us in the Holy Quran, but study on the level of mathematics, science, and physics and chemistry, would we not gain a better understanding of that parable in the Holy Quran?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, Sister Sharon, that's how we could teach the children. Take what
Yes, sir.
take what we're given in homeschooling, but we want to give them that baby bottle, but now we want to put a little Islam in it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Supplement the homeschooling with our lessons. Supplement it with the text. Right?
Yes, sir.
And then you see the children will become, now their brain is being challenged. Because when you study in the tech, there's something called games theory. And the way that Brother Ian, who mentioned this, he mentioned how dealing with games. He used chess, because when I do my extension course, I always use chess as like a demo kit to explain certain things. He said, would you find it a challenge to sit down and play chess with someone if you already knew you could beat them? I said, no, it's not a challenge. He goes, that's why when we come into this world and everything is erased. We come because that's the challenge. We have to relearn it. Because if we were born knowing everything, there would be no challenge, correct?
Right.
You know, Brother Salam, if you wanted to play chess, would you play chess against a person who you already knew that didn't know how to play? It's no challenge.
No, it's no challenge.
There's no challenge. There was an older brother who I used to play chess with. He's called Philly. Sometimes he would call me and he would say, "Yo, you ready to get some games in?" I see, I'm gonna put the coffee on now. So I put on a pot of coffee. He would come and play. Sometimes we'd be at the barbershop when I had the chess club years and years ago. Certain people would want to play Philly. He'd be like, "Nah, man, I can't play you. You're gonna make my game bad." So meaning your game is so bad, I'm gonna play you, I'm gonna make a lot of mistakes because I'm gonna take chances that I normally don't take. And then if you win, now you can talk about how you beat me, even though you don't know how to play. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if there's no challenge, then I don't want to play. There's no challenge there. Is your hand back up again, Sister Sharon?
No, sir.
Okay, I got to find a way to put it down. That's no problem. So,
Let me see.
okay, don't worry about it. So now, where the Most High Elijah Muhammad mentions the universe, he says when you study the universe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the universe the same as the sixth dynamic? The sixth dynamic is the mess, matter, energy, space, and time, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we understand the concept of the sixth dynamic, but we look at it from the perspective of if we're using that in conjunction with the teachings, then it allows us to look deeper into what we already have. Okay. So he says, if you study the universe and the nature of the earth, okay. So when you say the nature of the earth, isn't that the fifth dynamic? Or what's called the life dynamic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we understand the equations and the formulae and the axioms of the dynamics, would it not take us a little bit deeper into what the Most High Elijah Muhammad has already given us?
Yes, sir.
Yes, to get more clarity.
You get more clarity. Because remember, the messenger's teaching is a fundamental, meaning there's what you see, but there's layers upon layers of what you don't see. Okay. So he says study of plants. Well, that's called botany, correct?
Yes, sir.
And botany is a fifth dynamic concept. But if you study it from the perspective of our Islam, it becomes a botanical theology, correct? Y'all follow where I got botanical theology from?
The science of plant.
Okay.
Does anyone not understand how I came with the term botanical theology?
I would suggest that you came from a science of plants, plant life.
I'm coming from problem number 13, where it says, after learning Islam is mathematics and mathematics of Islam, it stands true. You can always prove it no limited time, correct?
That's right.
But then it says in the next paragraph down, it says, but then you must use your mathematical theology in its proper term, correct?
That's right.
But now if you look at problem number 13 like an equation, and you look at mathematics as a term that incorporates all these other terms contained in it, does not botany contain a certain level of mathematics? So when you study plants, there is mathematics involved in that, correct? So if I take the word mathematics and make it equal to the concept of botany, then I can use problem number 13 like an equation. I can say after learning Islam, which is botany, and botany, which is Islam, it stands true. You can always prove it no limited time, correct?
That's right.
But then I would have to learn to use what? My botanical theology in its proper term. What does that mean? That means if I'm teaching a child, Sister Sharon, if I'm teaching botany from this perspective of homeschooling, for minds that are more advanced, I can't just teach botany. I have to teach a botanical theology. What is botanical theology? Goes back to what the minister said in the Torchlight for America. Number one, you put a lot at the center of what you're studying. And number two, you make the study of the subject the same as studying the person. So now you take the homeschooling and then you say, okay, here's the concept. Here's the left brain concept. Here's everything we need to learn. Now let's spice it up a little bit. What can I learn about Allah through the understanding of botany? Because there's many ayats in the Holy Quran where he's talking about plants, right? He puts in the earth tracks side by side. He produces many fruits with many hues, but they're all watered with the same water, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Now you take that, because in that is a great truth. Because look at the orange. different shape, different size, different color, different flavor. Look at the grapes, different shape, different size, different color, different flavor. Look at the pineapple, different shape, different appearance, different color, different flavor, correct? But they're all watered with one water, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That same principle applies to religion. Zoroastrianism looks different than Buddhism. Buddhism looks different from the Taoism. Taoism looks different from Shintoism, but all of these are watered with the same water, correct?
Yes, sir.
So now you're teaching botanical theology, you put Allah at the center of the subject, and then for the homeschooling, we could say to the children, okay, the plant has the ability to do this. The plant can take sunlight and convert it into energy. So now if sunlight can be converted into energy, and if sunlight represents wisdom, how can you do the same thing with wisdom that the plant does with sunlight? So now what happens? What? Now you've challenged the student to think outside the circle. You've expanded the diameter of the child's thinking, and now you've done what? You're increasing the circumference of their activity. Yes, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are we solving this homeschooling situation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Allah. So so he says plant life, not animal life. That's called zoology, correct?
Yes, sir.
So now you take the same principle and you teach a zoological theology.
Right.
Because there's different characteristics of the different animals. If the scriptures represent characters and names that represent internal dramas, is it possible that we could put on a show, something that shows animals in their natural habitat and certain things that they do? And can we ask the child, okay, see how the lion just did such and such, so and so? What does that describe about something in Allah's character? What does that describe about something that you could do? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because if all the animals come from one source, again, the lion doesn't look like the tiger doesn't look like the elephant, but they're all different sizes, they're all different shapes. But what? Aren't they all watered with the same water?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can learn about Allah through the plants. Allah uses animals as a demo kit in the Holy Quran. And then if we are from Allah, then we should be able to learn about ourselves by studying the plant and learn about ourselves by studying the animals, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then he says insects. Well, that's called entomology. So can I learn something from an entomological theology?
Mm-hmm.
So you see how we're using the tech to open the safe of a statement made by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and finding some more jewels that are inside this safe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then he says, and study of the natural laws working among them. Well, that's called physics, right? When you're dealing with the natural law between certain subjects, that's called physics. Would that imply that there's a theology of physics, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll give you an example. Some of us have been taught, if you deal with an electrical wire, okay, so we're studying electromagnetism, we study electricity. We're taught that the electricity travels through the wires, correct?
Yes.
And if you flip the switch off, we're told that the current stops flowing, right? The electrons stop flowing, yes?
Right.
Okay, but technically, that's not true. That's how they teach it. That's how they teach it from the perspective of children. But remember, nothing in the universe is motionless.
Recording in progress.
Nothing is
motion.
Islam, could you read it? Got an echo. Thank you. So nothing, in the universe is motionless, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir. I couldn't unmute. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you flip the switch, the electrons don't stop. Now the electrons, because they have no purpose, they have no focus of where they're traveling, the electrons have what's called a drift pattern or a drift value, meaning these electrons are still moving, but they're moving in random directions because the switch is off. There's no current flowing. So now that there's nothing for them to do, the electrons are flying off in all different directions, accomplishing nothing. Okay, I think it's called a drift value. In other words, if we have purpose and our mind is focused, we get things accomplished, right?
Right.
If we sit still and do nothing, doesn't our thoughts drift in multiple directions and we get nothing accomplished?
Right.
So now we can take the study of physics, specifically electromagnetism, and tie that to theology, because an idle mind is the devil's workshop, right?
Right.
Okay. When we sit still and do nothing, our mind goes in different directions. Well, that's tone 2.5, right? On the tone scale.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So tone 2.5, which is boredom on the tone scale, is the same as the idle mind that is the devil's workshop. And if it's the devil's workshop, that means when we're doing nothing, that's when Satan within self starts to get his toys out, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's why we have to constantly keep ourselves moving, doing something positive, giving ourselves purpose and focus. Because when we keep ourselves moving, and next thing you know, we turn around, the whole day has gone by and we haven't even thought a negative thought because we kept ourselves focused on something that was positive, correct?
Right.
Okay. So now when you look at the words of the Most High Elijah Muhammad, the study of the universe, the nature of the earth, its plants, animals, and insect life, and the studying of Allah's creation and the natural laws, we're studying Allah's creation. So we're studying the universe, astronomy, cosmology, astrophysics. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We're studying the universe, we're studying atoms and quarks and electrons and nuclear physics and all these things. We're studying the earth and its plant life, the botany, the zoology. We're studying the physics. What we're doing is, when you look at this paragraph given by the Most High Elijah Muhammad, but you connect it with the tech, we're looking at studying the fifth and sixth dynamic. And if this is going to teach us, as he says, the key to the understanding of the way of life intended by God for you and me, this means the studying of these have the keys to tell us or show us how to handle dynamics 1 through 4 and 7 through 8. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Because by studying the universe, by studying the plant life, the animal life, I can learn things about myself on the first dynamic, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then I can also understand things on the second dynamic with regards to marriage and family. I can understand things on the third dynamic of how to handle groups. And then I can understand how to handle the fourth dynamic of the different groups interacting with one another. When you deal with the seventh dynamic, is the spiritual dynamic. What is that? Now I'm studying wisdom, I'm studying astronomy, I'm studying the universe and mathematics and physics in order to understand the spiritual aspect of myself, the seventh dynamic, which is the spiritual dynamic, correct?
Yes, sir. I would think that would go like first instead of being 7.
Well, when you deal with book 1, they deal with the first dynamic, first 4 first before they even get to 5th through 8th.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done in that order. It's so whatever works for you. Because if you're learning the spiritual side of 5 and 6, then we could say that's what's going to show you how to understand 1 through 4, right?
Right.
That works. That works fine. That works. And all of that is so we can understand how to exist in the 8th dynamic, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that make sense, everybody? Does that make sense?
To me, it does.
Okay. So that is, I didn't know that was going to take us an hour, 2 hours, and I thought it was only going to take us like, wow, that took us. Okay. Questions, thoughts, cognitions, suggestions, corrections? Yes, Sister Peggy.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If the genius of the Holy Quran is in the allegory, do those hadiths have that same genius? Or are they just stories that somebody made up?
Well, okay, so the hadiths are the sayings. The sunnah is the stories. I have read some of the hadith, and there's wisdom in the hadiths too. And I'll if I can remember, let me see if I can remember one in particular. Where you at? Okay, it looks like I'm grabbing books out of thin air, right? Wow, open right up to it. Just flip right open to the page I'm looking for. There's a hadith that says this, and the minister has recited this to us before. It's in a book called the 40 Hadith. 40 Hadith. And it says this, it says, Allah the Almighty has said, whoever shows enmity to a friend of mine, I shall be at war with him. My servant does not draw near to me with anything more loved by me than the religious duties I have imposed upon him. And my servant continues to draw near to me with supererogatory works, so that I shall love him. When I love him, I am his hearing with which he hears, his seeing with which he sees, his hand with which he strikes, and his foot with which he walks. Were he to ask something of me, I would surely give it to him. And were he to ask me for refuge, I would surely grant him it. In other words, if we go through these hadiths, there's wisdom here too. And if we go through these hadiths and we have the tools and look at how to break certain things down, just something as simple as word clearing, we will find more in the hadith. Because again, if it's truth, then it has to come from the same source. And there's only one source. There's only one source of truth.
I have a question, Luqman, Brother Luqman.
Hold on, Sister Peggy, does that answer your question?
Okay, yes.
Did we answer it fully?
I was just wondering if it uses the same allegory, because I was wondering if the hadiths, why do we even have them? So sometimes for whatever reason, I was thinking that hadiths, because there's so many of them, some of them can't all be wisdom.
Why
There's
not?
so many of them, supposedly thousands and thousands of them. Then they were being written after the prophet was gone for at least 2 to 250 years. And then they started out in a place called Uzbekistan. And so, and I know that's part of that present day Iran. So I'm just kind of wondering, what is the connection with all of that and the hadiths? Why so late?
Okay, if we understand, and I'm not a hadith scholar, but I'll give my kindergarten understanding of it. The hadiths are the collection of the actual words that people actually heard Prophet Muhammad say. Does that make sense? It's like when we say, I remember Mother Tanetta Muhammad saying what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told her. And then that would be, from our perspective, like a hadith. Now, if there are those of us who can say, I heard the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad say, that is what you call sahih. It means that's authentic, okay? The minister, when he says, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me, that would be sahih. That's sound. We don't doubt that, correct? Brother Jabril says, the Most Honorable Elijah